Hey guys, hope you all have been well. Welcome back to my channel. This will be my first video regarding how to prepare, how to plan, how to go about teaching your children from home. A little bit of my background: I did major in elementary education. I was a teacher for nearly 10 years and I stayed strictly in teaching the 4th grade. I would like you guys to know that my content that I'm going to be producing for education will be with the parent as the teacher in mind. Many parents are not educators, and so I don't think that we should push parents to become these professionals, but more importantly to reinforce the teaching strategies that they're familiar with in the classroom so they have the structure and the routine down, not to overwhelm the parents with all the content that they are not in the profession to teach, but to ensure that education is happening at home, and specifically for parents that want to have that one-on-one interaction with their child as opposed to relying on technology, whether it's this app or this program to teach your child where they're just stuck on the computer the whole time. For today's topic, we're going to be covering lesson planning. That is pretty much the start of any week for any teacher. Around mid to the latter part of the week, we usually visit what we've already covered, maybe things that we need to reinforce, and then start planning for the following week. Reinforcing lessons that your child has already been taught is a great way to start. That way they have some sort of familiarity with the content, and so you're not having to teach something brand new and then you might have those little hiccups in the way. And being that you aren't a professional teacher, if you're watching this and trying to find content for your kids, it might be a bit of a struggle. So starting out with reinforcement lessons, I think, is the best way to go. And what you can do is, if you have a way to contact your teacher, ask them for the standards and benchmarks that has already been covered in their classroom. From my understanding and how the school year runs, I think it's about 3rd quarter, so a lot of material should have been taught already and introduced in the classroom. So you will have quite a few topics to pick from. So if you can do that, definitely contact the teacher. Secondly, you want to be familiar with the standards and benchmarks of your state. Many schools have adopted Common Core, but that is not the case for everywhere. Getting familiar with the content your child is expected to learn gives you an idea of how to go about your research to do lessons or create lessons to accomplish those goals. So let's revisit. Step number 1, if you can contact the teacher to find out what standards and benchmarks have been covered to reinforce lessons, should be number 1, and then take a look at all of the standards and benchmarks that are set forth for your state. Now, once you see standards and benchmarks, I know for a fact that you're going to be overwhelmed. Where I'm from, we have adopted Common Core, and that in itself, it's a whole lot, a conversation for a different video on a different day, because I do have my thoughts on Common Core. But anywhere, you're going to see the list of expectations that are to be taught in the school year, and you're going to be overwhelmed. It is overwhelming. Yes, it is. But here's the thing. After you've gone about using and applying these standards benchmarks, you sort of create a process on how to attack these benchmarks with the least amount of work. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have this singular lesson, and if planned correctly, you can attach 3, 4, 5 benchmarks in this one lesson. So combining the benchmarks is not only great in making sure that you're providing variety into your lessons, but it reinforces the content that you're trying to teach. The retention of material taught one time will not be as effective as you applying it continuously throughout the school year. So it's very common to see a benchmark taught over time, and much like with life, the more you experience it, the more it is kept up in here. For parents that are unsure of what I'm talking about in regards to combining standards and benchmarks, I'll give you an example. Okay, let's say, so on a board or a piece of paper, you have a blank map, and on this map you're going to randomize number 1 through 7 on the continents. You give them the task to identify the continents according to the numbers that are given to them, write them on a piece of paper, and then next to them identify what hemisphere or hemispheres they're located in. Now parents, you guys are probably thinking, that's simple enough. What you don't know is that that simple lesson covers at least three benchmarks taught in the 4th grade. Now in 4th grade, you're expected to identify all the continents and oceans, benchmark number 1. If you're using Common Core, there is a benchmark L42A, which I believe is to use proper capitalization of words. You're dealing with names of continents. Of course, they're going to have to be aware of proper capitalizations of these continents. There is also another language benchmark, L42D, that stresses to spell grade level appropriate words correctly. I'm assuming that you want your child to spell these names of continents correctly, so letting them know that, hey, you have to make sure that your capitalization is done properly and your spelling is correct, and that you'll be looking at their work that way. They'll be a little bit more aware of what exactly it is they're doing. So 3 benchmarks, a simple task. I hope you're not overwhelmed at this point because it's about to get better. Here, I'm going to ease you a little bit. Research lessons. I cannot stress this enough. Research your activities, the ones you're looking for, the one that's going to help your child succeed, the one that you need to find to reinforce this content, but you don't know how to do it. It is out there. There are so many great lessons that you can find on the internet. Reach out to your educator friends, reach out to the teacher, find teacher groups on the internet. The material is there. Even as a teacher, I found a lot of great content, projects, lessons with people I've never met before. I found them on the internet. The resources that you need to teach these standards and benchmarks, it's already been made. You just need to find them. When you find your lessons, always be sure that your expectations are set for your child. Most of the time, teachers are pretty direct with their expectations in the classroom. Vague is not usually part of how we approach assigning a lesson or a project. So an example would be if you ask your child to write about, let's say, amphibians. Those are very vague directions to give your child. You can give them a list of questions that you want them to answer within their composition. Give them more guidelines as opposed to just saying, write about amphibians. Also, when you say things like make a list of, trust me, I've had enough experience in teaching to know that many kids will just do the bare minimum. So giving them a at least really helps them stretch out their brain cells a little bit and think more than what they want to. So let's say you're making a list of mammals and reptiles. Instead of saying make a list of reptiles and mammals, you would say make a list of at least 8 kinds of mammals, or make a list of at least 10 kinds of reptiles. Guidelines really help your child push themselves more than they want to. Trust me. My last tip, and I think the most important, is to always ask yourself before you even go about fulfilling the planning of the lesson, is this lesson something that I would enjoy if I was in my kid's shoes? Is it a kind of lesson that my child would enjoy? You guys know your child best, and you know what they're interested in and what they're not. And that's the same case for teachers. We want children to be engaged. We want them to want to learn more. And so if you ask yourself that question and the answer is, they probably won't like this, you might want to revisit it. So parents, those are my tips on how to go about lesson planning. Please know that it's always going to be overwhelming and a little scary when you first start out. I was scared my first year of teaching as well, but know that it gets easier with time and with the uncertainty of when schools are going to open back up. I'm sure that your child's education is still priority on your list, so hopefully this helps you out. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below, and I will try my best to help you out the best I can. Good luck to all of you parents that are going to take on the challenge to teach your kids from home, and I wish you all the best of luck. Happy planning!